Thank you, Gabe. All that stage training presence we gave you hit home. No pressure here, huh? So, welcome to Seal Beach Center for Spiritual Living. I'm Reverend Michael Heinle, and I have the absolute pleasure of serving as co-senior minister of this beloved community. How many were here last week, though? Raise your hands. And I've been told I need to announce, because there's a couple people who don't know who Ricky Byers is. They're visiting from out of state. She was the spiritual director of the Agape Center for over 32 years. She is the hottest ticket on the New Thought movement, I think, worldwide. And so it was a beautiful, beautiful thing. I have never seen this group on the first song dancing and singing in the aisles like they were last Sunday either. And I want to brag, because I always brag about you guys' consciousness. 3 weeks ago, I said, we believe in group consciousness. Help me. Hold the vision. Do your work in consciousness. So when I look out there on Saturday night, we'll see a full crowd. That was the most successful demonstration of that I've ever seen. So give yourself a hand, too. So I texted Ricky after she was through and thanked her for coming to Seal Beach and told her how amazing she was. And she texted me back and she said, Reverend Michael, that was just an old-fashioned love fest. I had a great time. And I had a great time bantering back and forth with my role as a different Reverend Michael, and we made some fun with that. So I'm going to talk about this a little bit later, but this is sort of a stretch opportunity for us, right? We've never had a name brand singer that I can think of in this house like that. That's successful. And Reverend Nicole, my introvert beloved, ran off, but Reverend Juanita had the connections, but it was Reverend Nicole who made it happen. So in our leadership, there are those of us, myself included, that we call ourselves good stewards. And so we said, oh, Ricky Byers, it sounds like a good idea. And then we started talking about her playing fee. And the good stewards had this collective Adam's apple thing happen. And it was only Reverend Nicole that said, absolutely, she's coming, I'm on it, get out of my way, we're going to make it happen. So she was on Facebook doing the promotion, everything like that. So let's just give her a little bit more love. And everyone tried to text her videos and everything like that, and she was so mad because she was sick because she couldn't be here. So she didn't look at all of them. So anyway, it was a powerful, powerful event for us. It was a transformative event in my mind. We've never done that before, and that's just a way that this beloved community is going to continue to step up and step up. And I really believe that's going to be our future. But the monthly theme we're talking about is the colors of love. And I'm talking about relationships today. It's like you're my mirror. Because our relationships take the full spectrum of how they look. We have a relationship, we pass someone on the street, may or may not say anything to him or her. We have a relationship in our workplace. We sort of have a relationship here with the socializing that we do here. But when you take these relationships to a different level, when you take these relationships and go into them with both feet, vulnerable, open, and trusting, it can be a powerful, powerful, powerful place to be. And in my mind, relationships have a great focal point on helping us make this spiritual journey. Because it gets us away from this looking at ourselves as an individual. It gets us away from this dog-eat-dog world. It gets us away from this fight or flight complex. It gets us back into the Buddhist teaching of understanding that we're not in this life experience alone. There's an interdependence with other people. And those people aren't just like us. But that's part of the divine picture. It all fits together. And so I think Reverend Nicole and I've said this before, we sort of bookend each other quite well because the peace that I give you is totally different than the peace that she gives you. But in terms of relationships, it's good that any minister who thinks he or she cannot live their life on stage is mistaken, so I'm going to continue to do that. So, Nicole and I met each other 4 or 5 years ago, and a relationship started. And so it was sort of nice because before we got into all the stuff we're doing now, we had time to get to know each other. And when you're in relationships, we use all kinds of tools to understand them. So, how many of you are familiar with the 5 love languages? Who besides me that acts of service is the absolutely best way to show love in your entire life? How many like to touch? How many like words of affirmation? How many like giving and receiving gifts? And how many of us just like quality time? So you see, when you're empowering, what we're trying to do is we're trying to get to these experiences, to these relationships where we're showing up not as the quirky individual that we've become, but I said in the first service, what we're trying to do here is we're trying to clean our inside windshield. Because the power and the beauty and the divinity of spirit is not out there, it's in here. And all we have to do is keep our inner work going and clear out those obstructions that we keep putting on it. We taught probably Myers-Briggs in most all of our classes, the Myers-Briggs personality profile. We've shortened it to, are you analytical? Are you a driving personality? Are you expressive? What was the 4th one that I missed? Oh, you're an amiable personality. So we have these tools, and one of the things that Nicole and I have really picked up on, our therapist introduced it to us, there's personality profiling that a lot of the therapists use. It's called the Enneagram personality profiling. Those of you who know Nicole and I, we rely on it extremely heavily. We relate to people in our family by doing it. And it's interesting because instead of maybe a horoscope where it shows this is what you were born into, the Enneagram profile shows you what kind of person you became because of your choices. And a lot of times you take on a personality because, quite frankly, your childhood was a bit rough. Quite frankly, you had to grow up before your time. And so I used to have this Pollyanna thing that thought my childhood was perfect. And it was very supportive and all, but it was more of an intellectual childhood. So when we're talking about the mirror that we are, just as Judy said earlier, when you see something that bothers you about another person, one of the foundational teachers, Emma Curtis Hopkins of the New Thought movement and a mystic, would tell us that what you're seeing in them that's bothering you so much is an unhealed and unintegrated part of yourself. So you use this term, you spot it, you got it. And if you spot it, it doesn't mean that that other person is bad. It doesn't mean that your judgment was right about them. It means that you got some work to do. You got some integration to do. You got some loving of self to do to bring it back. So this is what relationship is. So relationship is helping us with this evolution of our consciousness. we're getting away from the we are do it alone. We are this individual that has to do it alone, fight or flight type of thing. Now we're interrelating with someone. And the more we interrelate with them, the more honest we can be with them, the more genuine we can be, the more spiritual work we can do on ourselves. So when we do show up as this wonderful expression of the divine instead of this quirky person that's believed everything that everyone ever told them for the last 2 weeks. And everything they say is contradicting themselves. So Ernest Holmes told us a bit of this. He says, the mirror is something that simply reflects. You cannot scratch the reflection of the mirror, but you can change the image in front of it. And you are the image maker. So let us create new images which will reflect new patterns. And we must be definite in our conviction and deliberate in our plan if we expect happy results. For theories are no good unless they are applied. So Ernest Holmes always told us, we do not know something until we can demonstrate it. Let me read that again. This is very powerful stuff. You cannot scratch the reflection of the mirror, meaning it's a pure image, but you can change the image in front of it. And you are the image maker. So let us create new images which will reflect new patterns. And we must be definite in our conviction and deliberate in our plan if we expect happy results. For theories are no good unless they are applied. So what we're trying to do in these relationships is really be into these relationships, really to be honest. And I mean, my story, I started with this relationship with Nicole, and then, and she'll tell you that it was all her doing, as she said up stage many a time. But I think you and I know that's not totally true. So there was a mutual attraction. And for me, it was a really nurturing relationship. And so she was fulfilling that nurturing part of me that was missing. She was fulfilling that nurturing part from my intellectual upbringing. And so then I got to experience something I'd wanted to do 20 years ago. I thought I'd never do. I got to experience being a father. And I love Gabriel, and I love Haley. And so I got to get that experience. And so then we had fun going to the last part of my ministerial school together. And then she finished. And then this church I've been going to for 14 years, the minister decided to leave. And so Nicole and I were ready to step forward. And so now the yellow brick road was getting a little bit rougher. And I will say that this church transition was a very long transition. It had its good points, but Lord, it had some of its struggling points too. But we were blessed to be selected senior ministers here. And so I'm blessed. So now I have all these great relationships with my family. Now I'm blessed to have great relationship with this church I love to brag about all the time, with this beloved community. And that's what this community does. Because when this community is on purpose, the one thing we have that I think is better than any other community, when someone walks in the back door, no matter what the color of their skin, no matter what their sexual persuasion, no matter if they're on top of the world, just had that mountaintop experience, or had the worst day of their life, when they go through the back door, they are absolutely loved. And when we don't do that, we've fallen off our mission. The one thing I've learned from being a minister is it's not about formal goals and patterns and number of people in each and in each service. It's about, are we doing our mission or not? Because our mission is part of our experience with each other. It's part of my relationship with each of you. And Nicole and I keep listening to what it is that you want. That's why we did the survey. That's why we're sharing this survey together. But we're in relationship with you. And then the other part of relationship is there's a very old, powerful leader called Warren Felt Evans, who always in his prayers, he was one of the first writer of the New Thought material back in the 1880s. Always in his prayers, he always used to say, and in all our humanness, we reach up to embrace the infinite. Because this is a human experience too. We're not these people on a mountaintop that don't talk with anyone. We're walking down in the world, and if we truly believe God is all there is, we're bringing that divinity that we are everywhere we go in life, everywhere we go. There's not a place where we don't go. And the great author Brené Brown tells us about this. She says, we are biologically, cognitively, physically, and spiritually wired to love, to be loved, and to belong. When these needs are not met, we don't function as we were meant to be. We numb, we ache. The absence of love and belonging will always lead us to suffering. So we have to come here and we have to love each other. And the one thing that has to happen is our ego's sort of got to get out of the way, because the ego is what's been messing up your front windshield. It's not the rain outside. It's the ego inside. And Ernest Holmes says this relationship is God talking to God. He says this, we reach God in others by reaching out from the God within ourselves. Always the God in others will respond to the God in us, but never beyond the level of our inward spiritual awareness. So if we're so fixated on what's wrong with the other people, we're pushing down that great divinity that we are. And it didn't go anywhere. It's always there for us, whispering, I'm here for you. But we keep pushing it down. And the way forward is just to go through that and start acting as if we are this divine being that we say we are. It's a powerful place for us to be. Powerful place for us to be. And so, being in the ministry, what did I write? It brings up a relentless and rigorous journey into mental, spiritual, and emotional growth. Because being in the ministry, and I think we all have our own ministries, it allows us to put forward who we really are. And if things are not working, we can have the courage and the honesty and bare our souls to bring relationships in to help us with this. But the ego has to come down a little bit. Because if the ego is judgmental, and if we think we're being critical, and if we think we're being critical because we're right, we need more Buddhists in us. We need to get in terms with the Buddhist form of compassion. And compassion in the Buddhist term is not about feeling sorry for someone. The term is to sit with another. So if we want to be in relationship with someone, we have to be willing to sit with them in the high times and sit with them in the low times. Because we're all in this as a beautiful learning experience to take our life to the next personal and spiritual level. And it's really up to us. And so Nicole and I listened to what you tell us, especially with the surveys. And one of the things you really wanted was practical things you could do to take these messages into your daily lives. And I'll give you 3. And remember, we're bringing ourselves up to a higher engaging level so we can have a better relationship. So part of that is up to us. Part of us is to make ourselves the essence of the divine, which we already are, but we just got to get out of the way. So the first thing we need to do is we need to affirm and accept ourselves. We need to unlearn all those mistaken things and make peace with ourselves. And so I have a mantra for you. It goes like this: I am who I am, and that's enough. So can we say that together? I am who I am, and that's enough. Let's say it one more time so you don't forget it. I am who I am, and that's enough. So we're building ourselves up because we're not these flailing little child or these false beliefs that we bought into. Those are just things that we believed, falsely believed. So the second thing you can do is you can devote and dare yourself. What calls to your heart? And dare yourselves to step out of that comfort zone. And in my mind, this whole community did exactly that last weekend. I've been dreaming about having a person of Ricky Byers' quality and consciousness come here for a long, long time. And the visions I had of it, where everyone was dancing and having joy and having a good time, all came to be. So sometimes we have to step beyond what we're comfortable with. We got to devote ourselves. We got to dare ourselves. And then the final thing is you have to trust and transcend yourself. So this is the part where the ego is taking a back seat. You know you are born a beautiful, creative, unique, spiritual being. And now it's trying, instead of figuring out your own way in the jungle, you're stepping back and in a way letting spirit make use of you. You're going on intuition. You're not double questioning everything you are. You're transcending that old way of being so you can get to a new way of being, that you're powerful and you actually look like that divine, creative, spiritual being that you know you are. So those are the three ways we can make use of it. We can affirm for ourselves, we can step out of our comfort zone, and then we can transcend the place that we are. And I hope that works well for you. God bless you and thank you.